We're in the fifth and final part of the series, Home Renovation, and I hope that this entire series has been encouraging to you. I hope it's breathed some hope into you. I hope that it's giving you some maybe new insights or reinforced insights that you've had in the past. As we all pursue to be the parents, grandparents that God has called us to be. As we focus in on how to build a foundation of faith. Now, we've been looking at some just key components on how to build a foundation of faith. We've looked at a home of blessing, a home of love, a home of encouragement, a home of direction. And today, we're going to wrap up this entire series with a home of legacy. Now, I think back to, my previous 51 years of life, and I tell you, it's gone by in a blink. I was born on July 10th, 1973, and I tell you, I was a cute baby. I know. Cuteness overload right here. Cute baby. Well, at least my mom always says that I was a cute baby. Now, there's another picture. This is one of my favorite pictures, and it's cuteness overload. It's of my sister and I, and she exponentially increases the cuteness factor. But I think about that picture, of us, just all smiles. And it was in a blink that all of a sudden I found myself May of 1991 graduating high school. In fact, this is one of my, what I call my glamour shots, senior pictures. And it felt like one moment, right? I was just a young little tyke, and next thing I knew it, graduating high school, about ready to just leap into the world with big dreams, big aspirations. I mean, the world was ahead of me. And 6 years later, I found myself moving from a small town in Illinois to Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was getting married to my best friend, Kim. We had dated 4.5 years, 2 engagements, but that's not the story for today. I'll share that some other time. After that second engagement, we only had 4 months, and then we got married. And I think about those first almost 25 years. It went by in a blink. And now I'm almost 52. My oldest daughter is getting married in 2 months, and that has my brain and heart and emotions just churning in all different ways. This fall, Kim and I will hit year 28 years of being married. I mean, I think about my first 25 years, how quickly that went. The last 28 years, it's gone even faster. And that's why I think this word legacy, over the past several years, has just consumed my mind. Because here's what I know. I don't have another 51 years ahead of me. I have less years to live than I've lived. Legacy. What will I leave behind? Legacy. What will my kids' families look like? What will their families look like? What fingerprints will be left in their lives? Legacy. What really matters when you think about the scope of a life? What's really important? Today, as we will just again wrap up this series, Home Renovation, as we look at legacy, there's a few insights that I just want to, I think it's a perfect place to land this series. We're going to be looking at a couple of insights that the Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus. We call it Ephesians. In fact, in part 3, we looked at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25 and 29. Today, we're going to be looking at Ephesians chapter 6, and this is what Paul wrote. He says, children, so he's addressing kids, right? He's writing right to the children of the church. He goes, hey, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. That word obey, again, we've looked at that word obey in different forms throughout the course of this entire series. I've mentioned that in the ancient Hebrew, they didn't have a word for obey, so they would use words like Shema. We looked at that in part 2, this ancient Hebrew word that means to listen, right? Gain knowledge, gain insight, and to live out. That Shema was both the hearing, the listening, and the living out, putting into action. In part 4, when we looked at Proverbs chapter 1, that word wisdom means skill. They would use that word to describe an artisan, a craftsman, a tradesperson. And we all know those skilled artisans, right? It's knowledge that they have listened, that they've heard, but it's the putting that knowledge into practice over and over and over again that makes them skilled in what they do. And Paul pulls out this ancient Greek word, and he's like, hey, children, obey. Children, listen, live out. Hey, children, you got to not only just gain knowledge, but put into practice over and over and over again. He goes, in the Lord, for this is right. That obedience is the right way to live. Hey, children, obeying your mom and dad is the right pursuit. Now, I don't know about your upbringing or your parent situation right now, but maybe, just maybe, as you hear these words and you're thinking in the back of your head, Chris, you don't know my mom, you don't know my dad, you don't know my parents. And then all of a sudden that next thought gets connected to, hey, Chris, okay, are we supposed to obey parents even if they ask or tell me to do something not right, even if they ask or tell me to do something that is illegal, even if they ask me or tell me to do something that goes against God? Is that like, so we're supposed to obey parents no matter what? And I would say to you, no. And Paul covers this because he writes in the Lord. I mean, Paul covers this. He's like, hey, children, obey your parents as long as in the Lord. The framework that God has put together for us to live within. As long as it goes to God's wisdom, God's direction, as long as it, honors God, right? Follow God. We are to obey God first and then parents. So as long as it's in the Lord, then you obey your parents. If it's not, then don't. Well, Paul goes on. He goes, hey, honor your father and mother. Now, this is to everyone, no matter your age. No matter your age, we are called to honor mom and dad. Now, maybe those words sound familiar to you. Literally, the Apostle Paul is quoting the fifth commandment. Out of the Big Ten, the 10 commandments, this is number 5. So he just pulls that commandment and he's like, hey, remember, God commanded to honor your parents. Now, that word honor literally means to respect, to place a high value on, to look at your parents knowing that they are worthy of your honor, worthy of your respect, that you elevate them. Why? Because they're of high value. Now, again, I get this, that for some of you, I mean, the obeying mom and dad was difficult because for some of you were raised in, or maybe you're being raised in right now, where one or both of them, right? They're trying to get you to do stuff that goes against God. And you're like, that's, and then you get to this honor part and you're asking the same question. How do I honor parents who are not honorable? And for some of you, this is your reality. So how do you do that? How do you honor a mom? How do you honor a dad? He's not honorable. Peter, one of Jesus' apostles, disciples, this is what he wrote. He says, show respect to everyone. Love the family of believers. That's the church. Fear God, be in awe, reverence of God. And honor the emperor. Now, we'll come back to honor the emperor in a moment. But what you have to realize is that word honor and honor the emperor, that ancient Greek word, is the same Greek word, same exact Greek word as respect. Same word. So you could read this as, show proper honor or show proper respect, or you could read it as honor the emperor or respect the emperor, same Greek word. And Peter starts off this thought by saying, show proper honor, proper respect to who? Everyone. Everyone. That's the command. That's the expectation from God. That whether you think they deserve honor or not, we are called to honor everyone. Now, I want to share 3 very specific insights when specific comes to how do we show honor to people who are not honorable. The first insight is this: you got to choose to honor. That's obedience. That's obedience. I mean, you've now heard, you've listened. I mean, to the Apostle Paul, to Peter, the Apostle Paul that connects all the way back to God, to Moses and the 10 Commandments, right? You've all heard, right? The command is to honor, whether they're honorable or not. That's the command. The thing you have to answer: are you going to choose to honor, whether you want to or not, whether it's easy or not, whether they're honorable or not? As I was working through this message this week, I was rereading through my notes, and all of a sudden I read these words, something that I had written down, and I wanted to put it up on the screen for all of you, because I think this starts to answer, how do we choose to honor people who are dishonorable? This is what I wrote. Why? Because even unrepentant, vindictive, narcissistic parents or people, or you can insert a name right there, who act repeatedly in dishonorable ways. Okay, you feel that? This is a why. This is a why. Are created in the image of God. That's why God commands us to honor all people. It's why Peter goes, no. Show proper respect. Show proper honor to everyone. I think as Peter writes those thoughts, he comes down to that last thought, and all of a sudden he includes honor the emperor. I think that was such a practical insight. They hated, despised the emperor. Why? Because the emperor was a dictator. They didn't vote for the emperor. They didn't choose the emperor. They didn't even want the emperor. And all of a sudden, Peter, as he's writing this, he's like, hey, show respect, show honor for everyone, fear God, show love to the family of believers. And all of a sudden, he's like, oh, yeah. Everyone means even the emperor. Even the emperor. Respect and honor the one person that every person would agree, especially in that kind of Jewish region, that they hated the Roman emperor. He's like, no. Even the Roman emperor is created in the image of God. And we are called to show honor, respect. Why? Because they have such a high value to God. And when you understand that, choosing, I'm not saying it's ever going to be easy, but it's going to help you realize why God has called us to honor everyone. But that choice, that step of obedience, leads to number 2. You got to set healthy boundaries. You just do. If you're a parent right now, and your mom or dad, right, you're having to set healthy boundaries around, and I know that's some of your story. You have to set healthy boundaries. You can honor, respect, and have healthy boundaries to protect you and your kids. Remember, boundaries are about keeping healthy things in and unhealthy things out. That's what you're doing. So, to set healthy boundaries so that you can also honor a mom, a dad, parents. Be non-reactionary. Usually, all of a sudden, something happens within family dynamics. All of a sudden, something explodes, a decision was made, something was said, a power play was put into motion, something passive-aggressive happens, and all of a sudden, right, just reactionary, and all of a sudden, this is where most of the time people out of that emotion want to all of a sudden reactionary put boundaries in place. And I always encourage people, you just slow down, take 24 hours, take a breath, allow your emotions to kind of settle down. And once your emotions settle down, you have to be clear with the boundaries. And what do I mean by clarity? You have to write them down. Before you ever share them, write them down. I don't care if it's on your laptop. I don't care if it's a pad of paper and a pen. I don't care even if you get a rock and a chisel and you do it that. It doesn't matter. You got to write down clear boundaries. Unhealthy people need clear boundaries. You need clear boundaries around you, your spouse, your kids, and you got to write them down. And when you write them down, I would encourage you to find someone who's wise. Now, the book of Proverbs, we looked at that, gives so much wisdom on what a wise person is, who a wise person is, what a wise person does, and what fools do. So bring in a wise person that helps look at those. Once you have them written down, then you go and you sit with that parent. Not over text message, not in an email. No. This is courage. This is loving. You sit with them so you can look at them and you share with them the boundaries. And when you do that, you can either leave that with them or then you can send them. But after you've had a conversation, then you send them to them. So now it's all in writing. This is clarity. And clarity equals caring. And once those boundaries are clear, you got to follow through. And I think where most of the time boundaries go awry is in the follow through. Again, it takes an incredible amount of courage, especially if you are an adult setting boundaries around your parents or a parent. It's going to take an incredible amount of courage. Months from now, when some of the emotions have died, when all of a sudden those games starts to be played again, those passive-aggressive statements, those underhanded decisions, where the follow-through is everything. But here's the thing. Here's the end goal when it comes to healthy boundaries. We establish healthy boundaries to encourage your parents or any person, this works for anyone, to become healthy people. That's the end goal with healthy boundaries. You're saying, hey, you can be a part. You can come to my house. You can have a conversation with my kids. You can interact with me as long as you're within these healthy boundaries. And you're trying to help an unhealthy person become healthy. Now, you can't make them become healthy. You can't make them to choose to play within your boundaries. You can't drag them into it. Just like, guess what? No one can make you healthy. But what you're doing is you're setting up a healthy space to say, if you want a relationship with me, my spouse, my kids, my family, if you want to, these are the guardrails. And you're in pursuit. It's just maybe, they'll start working on themselves. I've said this repeatedly, that age and maturity don't always correlate. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you're becoming more mature. And in fact, it's the same thing in your spiritual journey. Just because you've been a Christ follower longer doesn't mean your spiritual maturity is in line, running parallel with the amount of time you've been a Christ follower. I've known Christ followers that could outquote a scripture with me. I've known Christ followers that have been a Christian a lot longer than me. I've known Christ followers where they open up their Bible, every page is marked. I mean, they have listened, they have heard, they have all the knowledge, but they've never chosen to live it out, which means their spiritual maturity is stunted. You're trying to set healthy boundaries. with the end goal that just maybe, that parent, that mom, that dad, that person will start working on themselves and start maturing into all that God has created them to be and to become. Honor is about high value, not because of who they are right now, but because who God has created them to be and what God sees them. And those boundaries will hopefully help them to become who God has created them to be. And all of that leads to, well, number 3. What's number 3? Well, it's C number 1. That's it. That's it. And repeat. And repeat. My dad had a very dysfunctional family. And here's what you need to know. I never met his real mom because of what happened in his childhood. Never met her. It was a boundary that she never wanted to step into the healthy boundary. And so my dad protected my sister and I. And at the same time, I never once remember hearing my dad say anything dishonoring of his mom. Now, as I got older, he shared more and more about his childhood, more and more about why he set up that healthy boundary, more and more about what led him to do that. But even in those conversations, again, he never said anything to dishonor her. He was so intentional to honor, even though she wasn't honoring. The Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians 6, honor, respect, place a high value on your mother and father. Why? Because they're made in the image of God. Then he goes on and he goes, which is a first commandment with a promise. Now we'll get to the promise, but remember this is a 5th commandment. And we can find the 10 commandments in 2 books in the Old Testament. The first place is Exodus, and maybe this is where you've read the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments is, the commandments that God gave to Moses. And it's honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. But like I just mentioned, there's 2 places, Exodus and Deuteronomy. And Deuteronomy, actually, when you look at the 10 commandments in Deuteronomy, they're kind of expanded. There's some more detail there. And maybe you've wondered, well, why are they different? And they're not different. They're the same command, but the purpose looks different. In the Exodus is God direct to Moses, here's the 10 commandments, give them to the Israelites. In Deuteronomy, it's Moses who's being a pastor, a spiritual leader, as he's equipping God's people to go into the promised land. So this is Moses, again, just teaching, preaching the commandments. And so he adds some insights there. So Moses goes, honor your father and mother. And then he adds, he's like, hey, as the Lord your God has commanded you. He's like, hey, 40 years ago, God gave me these commands. I just want you to remember. 40 years is a long time. Hey, just remember, it's a command. It's a command from God. He goes on, so that you may live long. And he goes, and that it may go well with you, that as you live your life, right? Like this is a promise as you live out this command to honor your parents, that it will go well with you in the land the Lord your God is giving you. So let's go back to what the Apostle Paul, again, he brings this commandment out, right? Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with the promise, the first command. All of a sudden, God attaches a promise. And then what Paul does is he brings in Exodus and Deuteronomy, and he writes, so that it may go well with you. Now that's from Deuteronomy. And remember, in Deuteronomy, he goes to the land. Well, that promise from Moses was for the Israelites as they were preparing to go into the promised land. Well, this is a different context right now, right? So Paul just kind of leaves off land. Why? Because that doesn't apply to us. And you might be wondering, can he do that? Well, yeah, we do that all the time. In fact, when Peter wrote, hey, honor the emperor. Honestly, for you and me, we don't have an emperor, we have a president. And God says, honor the president, whether you voted for the president or not. Honor the former president, whether you like them or not. And guess what? Honor future presidents. Why? Because it's not about the position, it's about the person. And God says, all people are created in my image, so give them honor. Give them honor. And Paul writes, so that you may enjoy long life on earth. The promise, think about this, through the lens of legacy. When we choose to honor, the promise, it will go well with you, generationally, in your life, and even when you're not here. Legacy, it's about the fingerprints that we leave on our kids, our grandkids, and beyond. Legacy starts with honor, respect, raising up high value. Why? Because every single person is created in the image of God. So, as we bring this entire series to a conclusion, there's a couple just last thoughts that I hope, again, encourage you, breathe some hope into you, and give you some direction. The first thought is this: parenting doesn't get easier, it gets different. You've heard me say this. It's some wisdom that my wife Kim and I received years and years ago when we were just starting on our parenting journey. And I tell you, we're now parenting young adults. And I tell you, this wisdom is so true. Every one of our kids are different kids, different personalities. Their perspectives look different. Across every stage of parenting, it's been different. At every stage, there's moments where we feel like we understand it, and all of a sudden they move into the next stage, and we're rediscovering and discovering all over again that parenting, it doesn't get easier. It gets different. And hold on to that. Legacy. You have to know that you are the primary spiritual leader in your child's life. Again, it's something that I've said repeatedly in this series. That we as a church, we're here to partner with you. Our Kids Rock, Velocity, Student Ministries. I tell you, we have so many incredible adults that are pouring into our kids and teenagers. Remember that parenting, it takes a tribe of people. But at the end of the day, you, mom, you, dad, are the primary leader, spiritual leader of your kids. And if you're not growing spiritually, guess what? It's going to make it so difficult for them to grow spiritually. God has placed that upon your shoulders for you. So grow spiritually. Grow spiritually. Which leads to this next insight. Keep Jesus at the center of your home. So many homes have Christians in the home, but that's not our pursuit. Our end goal is to have a Christ-centered home, not just Christians in the home, is to have Jesus at the center of the home. That every decision you make is through the lenses of Jesus. It's why the book of Proverbs as a parenting resource is so important. How you view money, how you view generosity, how you view work ethic, how you view discipline, how you view encouragement, how you view everything, right? Has to be Christ-centered, that you're viewing everything through Jesus. Every decision you make as a mom, as a dad, as a parent, as a grandparent, right? Everything for your family is about Jesus being at the center. And guess what? When that happens, I tell you, everything starts to shift. Remember, the Proverbs, it's not promises, it's probabilities. I'm just telling you. If you have a Christ-centered home, and you as mom, you as dad, you as grandparents, are the spiritual leaders, the primary spiritual leaders of your family, just watch what will happen in and through you, in and through your marriage, in and through your family. I'm just telling you, it is a game changer. So, you've listened. And my prayer, my hope, is that you will live this out. 5 weeks ago, we started looking at a home of blessing, this priestly Levite prayer. And so I just wanted to end just praying these words, sharing these words, saying these words over you one more time. Just close your eyes for a moment. Maybe just open your hands. Maybe just lay them in your lap and maybe just reach them out. And I just want you to receive this again. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Lord, we are overwhelmed to know that you are our Heavenly Father. And Lord, may we be the moms, the dads, the grandparents, the children that you have called us to be. That we all are created in your image. Because of that, we have the greatest value ever. Because we are the sons and daughters of you. In your name I pray. Amen.